Hi, I'm Summer Tothill and I'm a feminist influencer, educator and writer. And every week on my Instagram, I run a Q&A with my followers. They ask me their questions about how gender equality and oppression is affecting them in their world, and I answer. What you're about to watch or listen to is a compilation of 1 week's worth of those questions and answers. If you join me on Instagram every week, you can take part in the Q&A, ask your own questions, get your answers, get involved. Please suggest some good reads on feminism. Easy one to start with. Hopefully you are delighted to learn that I actually have a feminist library as a story highlight on my Instagram profile. It is a collection of books that I recommend or other people recommend. There it is. Just navigate to my profile, scroll along these little story highlights here until you come to the feminist library. There's everything you need to know. What can I say to a man that says women being angry/aggressive towards men about feminism and their experiences, etc., isn't the way to go, and that fighting aggression with aggression is never the way? File this under shit all men say. Feminists would get a lot further if they weren't so angry and aggressive. You get this feedback all the time as a feminist, and it often reminds me of a quote from the Return of the King film, where Eowyn, who is a woman, wants to be allowed to fight in the war, and she's not allowed to. And she says, "Those without swords can still die on them." And I think about that as women all the time. If you are oppressed, and if you take a pacifist approach where you carry no weapons, in this case you carry no aggression, you wield no aggression, you will be hurt by those that do behave with aggression because you will be defenseless when things happen. In this case, the thing that happens is oppression, but in lots of cases it's actually violence. Listen to me when I tell you this. There is no correct tone in which you can ask for liberation from your oppressor, because the correct tone is for you to shut the fuck up. So how do you fight this claim that your feminism is too angry and that aggression isn't going to get you anywhere with gender equality? Well, for starters, remember that you have a right to be angry. Women have every reason to be angry, and frankly, we are not angry enough. Most victims of sexual and domestic violence are women, and almost all perpetrators are men. Women do far more domestic labor than men. The gender pay gap and workplace gender inequalities keep women financially oppressed their entire lives, which has really serious consequences. The healthcare system dismisses women's pain and concerns. There are abundant reasons for women to be angry about these things, and if a man is telling you that you're being too angry about them, ask him why he isn't angrier. Why doesn't he want to work to end men's violence towards women? Plus, men have a great deal of anger and aggression too. They take it out on us all the time, but men's anger helps them to perpetuate oppression, whereas women's anger helps to liberate us from it. And so what if you're angry? No oppressed minority ever won any of their own liberation by just laying down and patiently waiting for the people with the power to sacrifice some of their privilege and stop oppressing them. Plus, not getting angry is a privilege. Only the people with the most power don't have to get angry in order to have their needs considered, because their needs are considered first as a matter of course. Calling your feminism angry and saying that it's unproductive is a deliberate silencing tactic. It is tone policing you to get you to shut up about the ways that you have been hurt, so that the person saying this to you either doesn't have to stop doing the hurt or doesn't have to face what's really going on. Everybody tries to make their point non-aggressively first. We only have to escalate to anger and aggression because men aren't listening and they are not helping. Plus, are you even being aggressive, or are you just telling the truth in a non-deferential fashion? Because men are allowed to be aggressive all the time and we just call it assertive. How to deal with female friends who don't think women should be equal to men. When coming up against acquaintances and friends who have opinions that we think are a bit batshit and make no sense and that we just fundamentally feel that we disagree with, a good rule of thumb, which I have learned from the psychologists and counselors I work with, is to just ask more questions. Sometimes we think we understand what a person's point of view is, but when we ask more questions, we can find out many more nuances about their point of view. We can also find out that perhaps we had made assumptions about what they think that were incorrect. We could find out that what motivates them to think this way was also incorrect. And actually, if we want to help them or try to change their mind, we can address more of what's motivating them to think that way rather than just kind of coming in and attacking the opinion itself. So some questions you might like to ask your friend who doesn't think men and women should be equal could be, what do you think equality is between men and women? What sort of behaviors and social structures and what changes from what we have now do you think would happen? Then when you've established what they mean by men and women being equal, you can ask what it is that they think would be wrong in the world. What negative consequences and outcomes do they foresee from men and women being equal? That should give you some really specific points to address. When someone believes that men and women should not be equal, it's really hard to argue that enormous point. I mean, that is the foundational basis of the patriarchy. But if you can get to the heart of what it is your friend fears about gender equality, because yes, of course, this opinion is based in fear, then you can start to unpick those little opinions, those misconceptions, and hopefully start to sway your friend. And then while you're trying to get to the heart of their self-oppressive opinions, some other things you could try include leading by example. You would be surprised how effectively you can inspire change in women by leading by example and by showing how things can be so much better by making different choices simply because you modeled that by making those different choices yourself. Ask me how I know. You can also try to bring it back to how far we have come in gender equality over the years, decades, centuries. The idea that men and women should be more equal is what gets all women the right to own property, own their own money, have a credit card, get an education, express an opinion online. I take it back. Maybe your friend should be stripped of the right to express that silly opinion. Advice processing a breakup in your 30s when society makes you feel like you'll die alone with cats. Well, firstly, congratulations on the breakup. I know that that's a weird thing to say, but I think we should congratulate more breakups, particularly when women are in their 30s, when they really feel like they're at a make or break time where they have to do something silly like settle down with a mediocre man who doesn't meet their needs. You did the right thing in breaking up. I know that it hurts like absolute fuck. And I know those good memories and that nostalgia from what you had are probably plaguing you right now. You're probably doing a lot of crying and feeling regretful and questioning your decision. I know I ended my marriage in my 30s, in my early 30s, and that was a really hard thing to go through. But one thing that I found that helped me to remember before I get into the feminist analysis is that just about everybody goes through this. Like, you meet divorced people all the time. Most relationships don't last forever. They just don't. You know, at the end of your life, it is just going to be you and maybe your cats. We do all end up alone in one way or another. Old age can be an incredibly isolating time, and having a romantic partner for a period of your life is no real guarantee that you will have them there for you at the end or when things get bad. Hell, we've seen statistics that show that men tend to abandon their female partners after things like a diagnosis of cancer. And what's wrong with being a solo woman with a cat? Cats are fucking magical, and women are great single. Our well-being is almost always better off when we are not partnered to cishet men. So if you never partner romantically with a man again, you will almost certainly have been better off. I know it hurts to not have romantic love in your life when you did before, but think now about the things that you couldn't have in your life when you were in that relationship that you can now. Think about all the wonderful things that you could do that you were somehow restrained from doing while you were in that relationship. And at the same time, think about the things that you feel you're lacking and how you could fulfill those in other ways. So one of the things we seek in romantic relationships is closeness, intimacy, someone to talk to, not being alone. But if you cultivate your friendships, you never have to get those things from a romantic relationship, and you set yourself up to be happy no matter what's going on in your love life. And believe me, that means you then don't have to wait around for some guy, and you don't have to be on the endless treadmill of dating losers. You have your gorgeous friends around you, you're happy, and if someone wants to come along and enhance that, you might give him your time, but he'd better enhance it. That's it for this Q&A. Thank you so much for listening. Do you love exclusive content that's just for you and to sticky beak inside other people's lives? If so, please consider subscribing to my Instagram. Your subscription to my Instagram is less than $5 a month, and that gets you guaranteed answers in the weekly Q&A, which is absolutely not the case for non-subscribers. It also gets you subscriber-only content and a peek inside my life. I do not share on my public Instagram really anything about my personal life, but subscribers get a peek under the hood, how I live, laugh, lol in a feminist way. But personally, my favorite thing is the guaranteed answers in the Q&As. I love being able to tell my subscribers that any question they ask me every week will absolutely get answered. So go to my Instagram and hit the subscribe button. Find me on Instagram at summertothill, that's summer with an O, spelt the same way as you see in this YouTube channel. I can't wait to see you there.